Iran launches a new barrage of at least 25 missiles against Israeli targets in the occupied Palestinian territories. The Russian Defense Ministry confirmed on Thursday the latest prisoner swap with Ukraine as part of a deal reached earlier in June at peace negotiations in Istanbul, Turkey. And on Thursday early morning, Category 4 Hurricane Erick touched Mexican ground in the southwest coast of the country. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We'll begin with the news. We now begin with the information. A new barrage of Iranian missiles struck several Israeli cities on Thursday morning. Various media outlets reported that Iran launched a new series of at least 25 missiles against Israeli targets in the occupied Palestinian territories, making it one of the most powerful Iranian retaliatory attacks since June 13th. Sirens sounded in Tel Aviv, ordering the population to flee to shelters. Despite censorship by the Israeli regime, images on social media showed the failure of the air defense systems, also known as the Iron Dome. According to Israeli media, at least 60 people have been injured and direct hits have been reported against targets in the cities of Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Holon, and Beersheba. In this context, the IRNA news agency reported that one of the strikes targeted the command and intelligence headquarters of the Israeli occupation forces and the Gavyan Advanced Technology Park in the city of Beersheba. They also specified that the centers attacked house thousands of military personnel and include the digital command, cyber operations, and surveillance and reconnaissance teams used by Zionist troops in their genocidal campaign against the Gaza Strip. In this regard, they also reported that the Soroka hospital in the same locality was affected by the shock wave and suffered minor damage. On the other hand, the stock exchange building in Ramat Gan, Israel's economic center located east of Tel Aviv, was also targeted. And the Iranian government accused Israel of deploying ineffective defense systems in urban areas in order to target civilians and justified increased aggression. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard denounced Israel for turning its territory into military barracks, generating a state of desperation and fear among the civilian population. Regarding this issue, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz pointed out and the finger at Iran for attacks on hospitals and residential buildings in order to evade responsibility. The Iranian authorities claimed that the target was the command and intelligence headquarters of the Zionist forces next to the Army intelligence camp in Gavyan Technology Park near the medical center. In this context, let us recall that last Monday, Israel directly bombed the Farbi hospital in the city of Kermanshah, western Iran. The attack caused significant damage and much of the medical equipment was rendered useless. In addition, the explosion broke windows and injured several patients hospitalized in the affected areas. The intensive care was one of the most damaged, and structural damage to the building was also reported. On the other hand, since the start of Israel's genocidal campaign against the Palestinian population, hospitals in Gaza have been systematically destroyed, causing the collapse of the healthcare system. The World Health Organization reported that only 19 of the 36 hospitals in Gaza continue to function at least partially, while 94% of them have suffered serious damage or have been completely destroyed. In addition, around 1,500 humanitarian workers have been killed by the occupation army. And following international outcry for the recent Iranian strikes on Israeli strategic facilities, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez denounced the double standards in the treatment of the Iran-Israel conflict. In this regard, through a post on his social media X, Rodriguez asked, "Where are those who claimed that there is never any justification for one state to launch a preemptive attack on another?" The diplomat finished then by also asking, "Are then there good and bad preemptive attacks, double standards, or complicity with the aggressor?" Meanwhile, in the United States, hundreds of citizens rallied in front of the White House to denounce the Israeli attacks against Iran. On Wednesday evening, a demonstration was called by the Answer Coalition, where those present carried Iranian and Palestinian flags, along with signs expressing their rejection of a new conflict in the Middle East. The demonstrators also focused their demand on the arms shipments that Donald Trump's administration is providing to the Israeli regime, demanding a total arms embargo. The demonstration also criticized Trump's refusal to accept the mediation proposed by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who had offered to act as a diplomatic facilitator between Iran and Israel. And we stay in the United States as hundreds of people gathered as well in Los Angeles to protest against the country's involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict and to demand the current administration stop funding wars abroad.
I'm out here today to protest with my community, to stand up to Trump's threat of war against Iran, to unite our community around the struggle that we have been facing here with the mass deportations, the ICE raids that have been devastating our community, and now Trump wants to wage another war abroad to, enact a U.S.-Israeli war against Iran, while the majority of Americans here we know are opposed to war, are opposed to any U.S. involvement with war in the Middle East, and actually demand for the U.S. to leave all the military bases that are lining the border of Iran, to stop funding billions of dollars into war abroad when we are missing crucial things here at home: affordable housing, universal health care, basic needs of our working people that are not and have not been met.
Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. We continue with more information. The Russian Defense Ministry confirmed on Thursday the latest prisoner swap with Ukraine as part of a deal reached earlier in June at peace negotiations in Istanbul, Turkey. According to the authority, the group of Russian servicemen was returned from the territory controlled by the Kiev regime and exchanged for a group of Ukrainian armed forces soldiers. The militiamen are currently on Belarusian territory, where they are reportedly being provided with the necessary medical and psychological assistance. In addition, the Eurasian nation's defense ministry informed that the servicemen will be soon transported to Russia for treatment and rehabilitation at the institution's medical facilities. Precisely at a briefing with international news agencies on Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed its readiness to continue negotiations with Ukraine, noting that the previous round of talks had paved the way for the current exchange of prisoners.
We don't care who leads the negotiations, even if it's the current head of the regime. I'm even ready to meet, but only if it's some kind of final stage, so that we are not sitting there endlessly dividing something, but putting a full stop. There must be a signature of a legitimate authority. We are ready to continue these negotiations. Right now, on the humanitarian track, the situation overall is such that these negotiations make sense. We have already agreed to exchange 1,200 prisoners. We are bringing back people, that's good. We have already handed over 500 people and received 400 back. I believe that everything will be fair here. We will get everyone we are supposed to get.
The 28th edition of the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg, Russia, also continues on its second day with the presence of at least 140 countries and the attendance of more than 20,000 people. On June 19th, a number of activities are set to be held, including an important meeting of university representatives from around the world who will discuss a new teaching model, the progress of technology and service to society, and Russia's role in the era of trade wars will also be discussed. These activities will continue until June 21st and are centered around the theme Shared Values, the Basis for Growth in a Multipolar World, featuring Bahrain as the guest country. Urged the advancements. In other news, President Xi Jinping urged the advancement of the construction of a community with Central Asian countries and the promotion of trade cooperation through the Belt and Road Initiative. In his opening speech at the second China Central Asia Summit in Astana, Kazakhstan, the president emphasized the strengthening of ties of friendship and cooperation among Asian nations. He emphasized that the 6 member countries seek to promote modernization through high-quality win-win collaborations based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. He announced that China and the Central Asian countries would sign a treaty of good neighborliness and permanent friendly cooperation to promote security and stability in the region. We now move on to other topics. On Thursday early morning, Category 4 Hurricane Erick touched ground on Mexican soil, southwest coast, few minutes after it gained strength on the Pacific Ocean. The event threatens to unleash destructive winds and flash floods on the region in the coming hours, as it was reported by meteorologists. Right before touching Mexican land, Hurricane Erick had maximum sustained winds of 230 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 275 kilometers per hour right in front of the coast of the southwest of the country, places where it impacted. In this context, the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, announced that all activities were suspended until further notice after Hurricane Erick arrived on the coast of Guerrero and Oaxaca this Thursday.
All activities have been absolutely suspended. The recommendations are to take shelter in your homes, not to go out, and to stay together as a family. If you live near rivers or in low-lying areas, move to the shelters. Stay together and stay informed through official channels. The Defense Plan and the Navy Plan are underway, as well as the Federal Electricity Commission. There is a lot of coordination between federal, state, and municipal institutions.
A volcano in eastern Indonesia erupted, blanketing the sky with a cloud of ash more than 6 miles high and forcing authorities to raise the country's volcanic alert level. Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki began erupting, spewing ash and gravel into surrounding villages and prompting the National Disaster Management Agency to ask people to evacuate outside the impact radius. The National Disaster Management Agency raised the alert level to 4, that is the highest, and expanded the recommended evacuation zones. As the volcano erupted and continued to erupt, a mushroom-shaped ash cloud could be seen for more than 145 kilometers away. Several villages outside the predicted radius, such as Boru, Hewa, and Watabuku, reported ash, rocks, and other debris falling. And as of noon Wednesday, heavy and continuous rains have affected some 300,000 residents of the Huayi district administered by the city of Shaoqing in southern China. According to local authorities, the phenomenon has caused some 70,000 people to be relocated to safer areas. The downpours caused by Typhoon Wutip, the first of the year, along with extensive high-level low-pressure phenomena and monsoon rains have battered the region since Saturday. 19 villages across the district have been affected with widespread damage to dikes, roads, and farmland. A total of 15 people have been injured, although none of them are in life-threatening conditions. Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow our page and activate notifications to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Former U.S. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez began his 11-year sentence at the Schuylkill Federal Correctional Institution in Pennsylvania. Menendez, who in 2023 was one of the most powerful politicians in the United States as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, was convicted in a 2-month trial on 16 counts, including bribery, extortion, and conspiracy. Federal prosecutors in New York revealed in 2023 that Menendez had sold his political influence in exchange for cash and gold bars. Before his sentencing in January, Menendez pleaded for leniency from Judge Sidney Stain, arguing that he had already lost his career and reputation, being ridiculed as Gold Bar Bob. Also in the United States, a vigil was held on the steps of the Minnesota Capitol in St. Paul in homage to Melissa Hortman, former Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, and Mark Hortman, her husband. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and his wife, Gwen Walz, attended the vigil and joined followers holding candles and laying flowers at a makeshift memorial. Alumni of the University of Minnesota organized a memorial event at noon on the Minneapolis campus with the purpose of providing a place where the shared grief could be recognized. On Saturday night, both the Congresswoman and her husband were murdered in their home by an individual who impersonated a police officer in the city of Brooklyn Center in Minneapolis. And the SpaceX Starship 36 suffered a major explosion during a flight test in the U.S. state of Texas. The 123-meter rocket lifted off from Texas just before dawn but lost connection with the command center minutes into the test flight. The spacecraft reached an altitude of nearly 150 kilometers before experiencing issues. With the support of large metallic arms, the first stage of the rocket was recovered on the pad. However, the upper engines were disabled as the rocket headed east, where a regulated incursion into the Indian Ocean was anticipated. The location of the wreckage is currently unknown, though images from Florida show falling debris in flames near Cape Canaveral. And we go now to Guatemala as riot police from the National Civil Police violently repressed a protest against mining licenses in the Santa Cruz mountain range with tear gas, leaving one person seriously injured. The victim, who is in serious condition, is the son of community journalist Raimundo Amador. The incident occurred in front of the Rio Dulce deputy mayor's office, where neighbors had gathered to express their opposition to authorized mining projects. Human rights organizations have demanded an immediate investigation as well as guarantees for the exercise of social protest and freedom of the press. And the Colombian Senate approved the labor reform despite opposition from right-wing sectors. Now it remains to be seen what will happen with the popular consultation promoted by the executive. Our colleague Hernan Tovar with the details.
With a vote of 57 parliamentarians in favor and 31 against, the Colombian Senate plenary approved the articles that made up the labor reform, whose discussion in its fourth and final debate made clear the positions of the opposition benches belonging to the right-wing parties that decided not to report it. For workers, progress was made in labor rights that had been lost after the implementation of regressive measures imposed during the government of Álvaro Uribe.
Está el de los dominicales y festivos, que estaba reducido en un 75%.
There is the issue of Sundays and public holidays, which were reduced by 75% in pay for work on those days, but not returned to 100% as it was before 2002, and the working nature of apprenticeship contract, a very important issue for working youth, so much that we talked about them and the opportunities they have for a better future, and yet we denied them their minimum rights. But on this occasion, they will be guaranteed the full rights as a work contract like any other, which does have a fixed term for their position.
It was also agreed that the recognition and payment of overtime for night work will be changed from 10 p.m. to 7 p.m., which is one of the most significant elements and key achievements of this project. In a session marked by limited debate and participation by members of the government coalition benches who support the structural changes to the articles and whose position was decisive in the elimination of some articles unfavorable to the working class.
En la Comisión Cuarta del Senado, Angélica Lozano y los ponentes introdujeron.
In the fourth Senate committee, Angélica Lozano and the speakers introduced some extremely regressive measures, such as hourly work, Articles 37 and 38, which we managed to eliminate, as well as a 4-day work week for 3 days of rest, which meant that workers were not paid for overtime, and we managed to eliminate all of that. We went to a clean vote because the agreements that were being made, the consultations that were being made, were broken.
Aunque significa un avance en materia de justicia.
Although this represents progress in terms of justice and dignity in the workplace, some legislators allied with the executive branch are disappointed that they were unable to include formal provisions in the contracts of cargo transport drivers, who are waiting for the text to be reconciled in both the Chamber and the Senate so that their demands can be met. In addition, the contracts for agricultural workers was not recognized.
Contrato de trabajo agrario que está reconocido en el Código Sustantivo de Trabajo.
The agricultural employment contract recognized in the Substantive Labor Code in 2000 has not been restored. The reform promoted by Mr. Álvaro Uribe Vélez dismantled many rights, including the agricultural employment contract. Today in Colombia, there are thousands of workers on the farms of large agricultural companies who work as day laborers.
Now the approved text from both the Chamber and the Senate must be reconciled for presidential signature and to become law. Analysts assure that thanks to the impetus of the popular consultation containing the key points of the labor reform, progress was made in this area by the Senate.
Hernan Tovar, teleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.